So, if you're new here, How the Internet Fell Out of Love is a monthly series that I do on this channel where I pick a celebrity or pop culture figure and I chronicle the internet's perception of them over a certain period of time, and I try to do that from as neutral or unbiased of a perspective as I possibly can. Many of the folks that I choose to cover on here are people whose work I was a fan of at some point in time, if I am not still a fan of them. But I think for as long as I've been doing this series, it has garnered the reputation online of like, Kayla's gonna come on here and tell the story about how someone got canceled and she's going to make fun of them for it. And maybe sometimes that's a part of the narrative, but I think a bigger part of what I try to do here is, chronicle the story in a way that somebody can understand if they don't know all of this information, and then from there, I leave it up to you to debate whether or not the internet falling out of love with a person was fair. Because as we've seen, it can happen on a dime whether it's justified or not. And I wanted to give you that preface here today because when I started doing research for this video, which has been highly requested for a long time, I really wanted to do it right. Because if you search like Lizzo drama on YouTube, you'll get plenty of videos highlighting some controversies that of course we're going to get into, but they do it in a way that I just don't think is very productive. Lizzo was always this horrible, manipulative person. She's a monster. And whether or not you believe that's actually true based on the information that I'm going to tell you about today, I think people were a little too eager to start shitting on Lizzo the moment that they had the opportunity to, whether she deserves it or not. And so therefore my last disclaimer here is that what we're not going to do in my comment section today is be racist and fatphobic. Critique Lizzo all you want for her actions and her alleged behavior over the last few years, but I just really want to drive home, before we get into all of this, that a person being quote-unquote problematic does not give you the excuse to dehumanize them or negatively critique their appearance, because it's not relevant. I will delete your comments, I don't care. But before we get there, I have a very important development that I want to discuss with all of you, and that is that I have a brand new dresser. This beautiful dresser here came from Article, which is the sponsor of today's video, and I want to talk about all of the things that I love about it so much. First of all, it has so much space. The drawers are so wide, which is amazing because I have a lot of clothes and I live in a very tiny New York apartment, and so storage is a big factor for me. And when I got this dresser, I was so pleased with like the depth that all of these drawers have. It's sleek, I love the color, and the drawers open really smoothly, which is nice because I used to have this problem with my old dresser where the drawers would just like randomly fall out. And if you've been putting off a furniture revamp, let this be your sign, because I had a wonderful experience with Article customer service getting this dresser here, because like I said, I live in a tiny New York apartment, and getting furniture up flights of stairs and dealing with service elevators is not always the easiest, but they made the process so simple and they have so many options to choose from on their website. Not only is the craftsmanship super quality in all of their furniture pieces, but the prices are all great and very reasonable, and their online only shopping model makes it pretty easy to like sort through and find what you're looking for and, prioritize your order. You can work with customer service to make sure that it comes to you in the way that you want it, when you want it. Shipping is super easy. Article ships to the US and Canada. They communicate with you every step of the way. They also have options where you can get the furniture like built for you by the folks who come by, and that's what we did, which made the process like super quick. And that is why I am so excited to be partnering with Article today to offer you a little bit of a discount if you're ready to get started in your new furniture journey. Click the QR code link here or the link in my description down below to receive $50 off of any purchase over $100. That is $50 off of any purchase over $100. You won't regret it, guys, and thank you so much again to Article for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so I first became familiar with Lizzo in 2018 because she guest judged on RuPaul's Drag Race season 10, the makeover episode. Tyler Oakley was there, it was crazy. And the bottom two, that episode lip-synced to her song Good as Hell. And I remember listening to that song for the first time and being like, I like this a lot. I think this girl is gonna blow up. And then sure enough, by 2019, she was absolutely everywhere.
Why being great till they gotta be great? I just took a...
Good as Hell definitely did some numbers, but her two biggest songs around that time were Juice and Truth Hurts. And Truth Hurts in particular, if you were in college around that time, like that song was absolutely inescapable. Lizzo's music around that time was definitely in like the feel-good, positivity category. And while I think her music is more typically associated with like the general feeling of cringe now, at the time there was something really earnest and endearing about it, and something really earnest and endearing about her as a performer. She wasn't an industry plant. She was working and grinding her way to the top, starting off as a rapper and then getting more into like this upbeat pop style with R&B influences. She was also a really great entertainer. I think a lot of people remember the BET performance, which I don't think I can play for copyright, where she's like in a wedding dress and she's playing the flute. I think Lizzo's power around this time was that she was a really magnetic entertainer, and she seemed like she was having fun. She was having fun being there. She was grateful for every single experience that came her way during her rise. And I think she stood out because around that time, I remember sort of like, you know, this was peak Billie Eilish era as well. And I love Billie, I do, but I think her melancholy, softer spoken kind of style really influenced the rest of the pop scene around that time. So Lizzo's loud, over-the-top style being such a stark contrast from that really made her stand out. And obviously we also have to note the fact that Lizzo doesn't look like a typical female pop star. She's a plus-size woman, and she typically dresses in a way that society does not deem to be acceptable. But obviously this is an aspect of Lizzo's persona that's very empowering for plus-size women and girls who don't usually see themselves represented that way in pop music. And for the most part, I don't think it ever came off as disingenuous or preachy, more in the sense of like, you don't have to be a size 2 to shake ass, and I think that's a message that everyone should be able to get behind. But of course, the way that Lizzo confidently moved through the world as a fat black woman was inherently going to be off-putting to different groups of people. Of course, she was attacked from all angles in terms of the promoting obesity conversation. At other points in time, she was critiqued by parts of her plus-size fan base who disliked that she was doing ads promoting weight loss related products. But I think what endeared a lot of people to her more in this regard was the fact that she was just a talented person doing her thing, and she didn't care what she looked like, and she didn't care if you liked it. I think peak Lizzo faux outrage was that time that Ben Shapiro melted down because she played a flute that belonged to James Madison. She played it in the Library of Congress, and remember, Lizzo is a professionally classically trained flutist, or flautist, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. And then she brought that same flute to a concert and played it there, and a bunch of conservatives started freaking out and saying that she was disrespecting, I guess, the legacy of James Madison because she was playing the flute while, like, twerking, and she was in her, like, little, you know, concert getup, which is just a very silly thing to be mad about, and I think most people could, like, get behind that sentiment at the time. It's also worth noting here that during this time, Lizzo did have her own fair share of, like, actual controversies. For example, she was accused of stealing from a British singer in 2018 with her song Truth Hurts, specifically by apparently lifting the DNA line from a tweet. Lizzo denied those allegations and said that she got the line from a meme and not from that specific tweet. She put a girl on blast on Twitter for allegedly stealing her Postmates order, and then she apologized for that, owning up to the fact that, like, Lizzo has a large following, and so that could have definitely put that girl in danger, and referring to Chris Brown as her favorite person, which, fucking yikes. After Lizzo's first big breakthrough album, 'Cause I Love You, which came out in 2019, we saw a lot more of her in various iterations. She won an Emmy for her reality TV series Watch Out for the Big Girls, which featured women who were competing to be dancers on Lizzo's tour. She was working closely with SZA and was a contributing producer on some of her tracks, and she was releasing new music that ultimately came out on her next album Special, including the song Rumors and About Damn Time, which became a sleeper hit on TikTok. When it came to the pop scene, it felt like Lizzo was here to stay. And outside of the promoting obesity naysayers, I don't think most people had a problem with that. I think at the very least, her music kind of had a reputation for being like the upbeat, funky Kohl's music that you see in retail commercials. Like, that commentary is definitely more prevalent now than it was then. But she had some bangers, and I think generally speaking, she was just a source of positivity for a lot of people, especially the plus-sized fans who looked up to her. Which is why a big controversy that she got into this time last year really threw people for a loop.
Now that bombshell lawsuit against Lizzo, 3 former backup dancers are suing the pop superstar, her production company, and her tour's dance instructor, alleging sexual and racial harassment as well as a hostile work environment.
In August of last year, 3 of Lizzo's former dancers accused her of sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment. Allegations include Lizzo allegedly berating and firing a dancer due to her weight gain, and alleging that she pressured one of them to touch a nude performer at a club in Amsterdam. There are some pretty, like, in-depth allegations here in regards to that Amsterdam encounter that I don't think I'm allowed to say, but I'm putting them on the screen so you can read them. The lawsuit also claims that Lizzo subjected some dancers to a, quote, excruciating audition after leveling false accusations accusations that they were drinking on the job. There were also some bizarre allegations that the captain of Lizzo's dance team was like berating some of the dancers who had premarital sex and was generally just like being inappropriate with them. In regards to what that has to do with Lizzo specifically, the dancers allege that Lizzo did know about this behavior and did nothing about it. And finally, the lawsuit alleges that there were racist and fatphobic comments geared toward the dancers by employees related to Lizzo's tour. The same day that this lawsuit came to light, a filmmaker came out and said that she walked away from making a documentary about Lizzo because of how she treated her, and other people who worked with Lizzo who were not involved directly in that lawsuit spoke up on Instagram corroborating the allegation. In response to these allegations, Lizzo ended up posting a statement on Instagram that says, quote, "These last few days have been gut-wrenchingly difficult and overwhelmingly disappointing. My work ethic, morals, and respectfulness have been questioned. My character has been criticized. Usually I choose not to respond to false allegations, but these are as unbelievable as they sound and too outrageous to not be addressed. These sensationalized stories are coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional." Within the same time frame, there were another group of dancers who posted a statement in support of Lizzo on an Instagram page. There was also a second lawsuit filed against Lizzo a short time after this, with a former employee suing Lizzo and her wardrobe manager for the same claims of a hostile working environment. Lizzo also attempted to countersue the dancers, but that lawsuit was ultimately thrown out, and for a complete write-up of all of these lawsuits, there are links in the description down below. Now, I'm gonna state the obvious here, this fucking sucks. Lizzo built her whole brand off of inclusion and positivity, especially for women who looked like her, and to hear allegations that her dancers were treated in this way is disappointing, but not necessarily surprising considering that there are, generally speaking, a lack of opportunities for plus-size dancers in the entertainment industry, and there's a whole uncomfortable power dynamic here of plus-size dancers being, you know, grateful to have a job on a high-profile tour like Lizzo's, and feeling like they need to, you know, put up with certain behavior in order to keep the positions that they're currently in. I feel like I also remember rumors around the time that this case first broke that the dancers were lying, and they confirmed that they were lying. I haven't seen any, like, official source about that. I see people saying that on TikTok, but, like, most of that has been unfounded, I think, and also the fact that, like, the most recent update is that, you know, this year in 2024, it was confirmed that, you know, parts of the lawsuit were going forward. Lizzo kind of laid low for a bit after this, but it was clear that all of this, you know, negative attention was getting to her because she posted a statement on Instagram a little later in the spring of this year saying, quote, "I'm getting tired of putting up with being dragged by everyone in my life and on the internet. All I want is to make music and make people happy and help the world be a little better than how I found it. But I'm starting to feel like the world doesn't want me in it. I'm constantly up against lies being told about me for clout and views, being the butt of the joke every single time because of how I look. My character being picked apart by people who don't know me and disrespecting my name. I didn't sign up for this shit, I quit." This led people to, you know, clearly speculate that she was quitting the music industry entirely, but she later clarified in an Instagram video where she said something to the effect of, "I want to continue making music, but I'm going to, you know, quit giving these haters my time and energy." That catches us up to present day, where Lizzo recently posted on social media that she's, you know, taking a gap year to protect her peace, presumably as all of these legal situations play out in the court. She says she wants to write an album about, like, her journey of self-love throughout this time, and oh my god, people are being so fucking weird about this. Here's the thing, it's clear from the videos that Lizzo has been posting on social media as of late that she's definitely lost a little bit of weight, and, like, good for her, but it's just so mind-boggling to me that since this lawsuit came out, and not necessarily for a bad reason, I'm just saying, like, everybody has been dragging Lizzo to hell and back, saying that she treats her dancers like shit, saying that her music has always been bad and, like, cringy and corny, that she never should have been famous. People have been, like, pretending that she just hasn't existed for, like, a full year. I don't see anybody talking about, like, Lizzo's music anymore at all, ever. And now if you search her name, it's all like, Lizzo reveals stunning weight loss, Lizzo talks about her weight loss secrets, Lizzo reveals jaw-dropping transformation. The right-wingers who have been giving her shit since she came on the scene in, like, 2018 are now all posting about how, like, bullying works and Lizzo's finally trying to take control of her body, and, like, fuck you. What I'm trying to articulate here is that I feel gross about the fact that Lizzo's perception and reputation has ultimately always ever been connected to her body. She moves through the world differently than some of the other pop girlies who have been in the game recently, and as a result, she's gotten dragged through the mud for making corny body positivity music. Then she does something actually problematic and gives all of those people a reason to double down, and it's shitty and it sucks, and in a sea of criticism that is actually valid and relevant to the issue at hand, there's a lot of just blatant fat phobia and anti-blackness that people now feel as though they can get away with because Lizzo did something bad. And to be clear, I'm not saying that like she should be exonerated for everything that's alleged in that lawsuit. I feel like if people are corroborating it both within that lawsuit and outside of it, and Lizzo has garnered this reputation in multiple different contexts, like obviously there is a kernel of truth there, and I think it has to play out in the court, and I feel like if she is guilty of a lot of the things that are said in this lawsuit, like that's shitty, and it sucks, and she should receive consequences for that, for sure. But the way that everyone is suddenly switching up on her and praising her because she lost a little bit of weight, like, I'm not saying this in regards to like everyone and how they feel about her, but I feel like for some people, they've just always been uncomfortable with the fact that she's not skinny. And unfortunately, I feel as though I'm going to get misinterpreted here, and people are going to boil what I'm saying down to Lizzo should be forgiven for everything she's done wrong because she's plus size. That's literally not what I'm saying at all. The behavior that we let celebrities get away with has always been and is going to always be proportionate to how they look and how they function in the world. So I'm not saying Lizzo should get a pass for being mean to her dancers because she's fat. I'm not saying that Lizzo has automatically been reformed because she's lost weight and is clearly thinner now. I'm just saying that these kinds of biases have always been persistent within us, and I would like all of us to start being more consistent. The internet was waiting to fall out of love with Lizzo, and instead of meeting that moment, she definitely fucked up catastrophically by building her own brand around body positivity, only to turn around and allegedly demean the people who worked for her and likely took the job thinking that it was going to be a safe space in the way that the world has demeaned her. It's sick and it's sad and it's fucked up and I hate it. But am I going to be surprised if the perception of Lizzo changes over time in correlation with how her body is changing? No, because the internet is filled with some superficial motherfuckers. That's all.